There's a history from Lord Anson, the land grant, that basically started out around here.
The Union County that we know today is a lot different than Union County was in 1842.
Well, you have to start with when our first court was done and why we needed our own courthouse or court meeting place. It was too far to get to Anson and too far to get to Mecklenburg. I think it took you a whole day, so you probably ended up having to spend the night. Just like other counties were formed as well, they needed the same thing. We just petitioned the state and said, look, we need to be our own county.
So in 1840, a group of men met, filed a petition, and asked our North Carolina legislators to form Union County. That did not pass. The bill was not ratified. It took a second petition filed to get approval and to be ratified.
So a piece of Mecklenburg and a piece of Anson, and we like to say the best parts, were taken to form Union County.
There was some heated debate on what the new county's name would be, but the end result was that it was called Union, the Union of Anson and Mecklenburg.
Union County met at the area called Labatt's Crossroad. It was named after Abraham Labatt. He lived in the Houston community. Labatt's Crossroad is at Rocky River and Newtown Roads.
And there was a cotton gin there at Labatt's Crossroads. And the cotton gins had a room in them that was called the clean room. The clean room was where all the cotton, after it had run through the gin, went into before it was baled up and shipped off. And it was a good sized room. And that is the first meeting room of the Justice of the Peace in Union County. And those are where the first meetings took place for county government, was at Labatt's Crossroads.
But the legislature had stipulated that the county seat must be within 2 miles of the center of the area. Henry Cheney had the land here where our courthouse is now located and sold the county 75 acres for $75. The first courthouse was built out of wooden clapboard. Wasn't very big. The specifications are so listed, but no picture of it sitting on this square exists. However, when it was moved in 1886 to allow for the courthouse to be built, it was turned into a livery stable or a horse sale barn.
Looking back at 175 years of Union County, I think the most important first climax was the railroad coming to Union County in 1872.
The Seaboard Rail Line coming out of Wilmington was expanding west, but the route had not been selected. And the county commissioners at the time knew that. What they did is they hired a representative or a lobbyist to speak on their behalf at these meetings where the route for the railroad was being chosen. And in order to influence that decision or have a greater voice in that decision, the county commission decided that they were going to buy railroad stock. So they bought $60,000 worth of railroad stock, and that was through a bond that they issued. And through their representative, their lobbying efforts, and through the stock that they owned and the votes that they controlled, they were able to helped determine the route of the railroad and had it come through Union County. So that gave Union County its first big economic boom.
And it came through several Union County towns, but Monroe was, of course, a stopping point. It increased the market value. Cotton, of course, was the main crop here, and it allowed the farmers to send their cotton to more distant places. But if you look at the population statistics between 1870 and 1880, there was a dramatic growth.
When the railroad came through, they didn't find that many people were stopping and either staying the night in Union County or seeing what Union County was all about. So, as I like to think of it as Union County's second big economic development project, the commissioners at the time decided that they needed a new courthouse. So plans in the early 1800s began to be made to replace the original courthouse with the courthouse we see today on the square in Monroe. And they wanted to make it a grand structure, something that as people came into Monroe and they looked up the hill from the train, that they would see this big grand courthouse on top of the hill, and it would make them want to get off the train, or at least be interested in getting off the train and taking a look to see what was going on in Union County.
At first, it had, I think, some kind of cupola, but it didn't have the clock tower until, I think it was right before 1900 they put that in. We're so proud of the historic courthouse, and of course it's used as the letterhead for Chamber of Commerce and telephone books and all. Over the last 175 years, there are a number of people that stand out. The Belts were very important because, of course, their first store was here in Monroe on Main Street. It was 1888 that they opened their first store. And there were two brothers. William Henry Belk was the main one that opened them, and then he, in just a few years, talked his brother, Dr. John Belk, who was practicing medicine down in Anson County, to go in with him. So for many years it was called Belk Brothers. And then they opened stores all over the South. It was the place to shop. The Helms name is very predominant in a lot of ways. And Jesse Helms, of course, was a native of Monroe.
Jesse Helms was 30 years in the United States Senate, the longest serving United States senator from North Carolina. He played a pivotal role in politics of the end of the 20th century, the beginning of the 21st. But his tie to Union County is always very strong. And Wingate University is a critical part of the county, and Senator Helms brought many luminaries, great speakers from, nonpartisan basis, from Madeleine Albright to Margaret Thatcher to Kofi Annan from the United Nations to Bob Dole to Henry Kissinger. He brought them to the campus and to Union County, helped put Wingate University and Union County on the map.
Just prior to 1896, some local Baptists from the Chesterfield Association and the Union County Baptist Association decided that they needed a secondary school for the young men and women in their community. So this was before secondary education, so in 1896 they opened up the Wingate School to both young boys and girls in this community to help with their schooling. Well, the state of North Carolina eventually decided to offer free public education. So we moved from the Wingate School to Wingate Junior College, and we were in that position for 60 years or so until again the state of North Carolina decided to invest in the community college system. And it was at that point that Wingate, being wise and needing to evolve again, became a 4-year baccalaureate degree institution in 1976. So in 1996, at our centennial, we were offering master's degree programs and knew that the future of the university was going to be a combination of undergraduate, graduate, and professional programs. And we were growing and becoming a more comprehensive enterprise. So it was at our centennial in 1996 that we became Wingate University and have evolved into the comprehensive university we are today. And so we've had an impact from education to economic development to just the arts in our community. We have music venues, arts venues, athletic venues, so we think we contribute to all aspects of the quality of life of our county, and for that we're very proud. So as we think about our future, we're currently about 3,500 students, and we believe that we can grow to somewhere north of 5,000 students with a rich mix of undergraduate programs, graduate degrees, professional programs, and be of real service to both the state of North Carolina and to our region. Well, we now have a full range, offering over 30 baccalaureate degrees. We have master's degrees in business, education, and the sports sciences, as well as physician assistant studies. And then we also offer doctoral programs in education, pharmacy, and physical therapy.
I think one of the most important things that Senator Helms probably did for Union County during his time in the United States Senate was he had a great interest in agriculture. And as we all know, agriculture is very, very important to Union County.
The bulk of the county remains still agriculture, and not only is it dedicated to agriculture, it is one and remains one of the top producing ag counties in the state, and we continually rank to 1, 2, or 3 in all the major commodities that the state produces. And as you probably are aware or aren't aware, North Carolina's #1 industry is agriculture.
One other aspect of agriculture that has been big in Union County is the development of contract poultry production. What that involved was in the early days, farmers grew a few chickens, had a few eggs for their family. But farmers saw the opportunity to sell eggs and poultry to markets like Charlotte. So those enterprising individuals began to provide the feed and the management for those birds, and the farmers provided the labor and the management. It was known as contract production, and Union County grew to become one of the largest contract poultry areas in the state of North Carolina, and remains that to this day. We're like #2 in broiler production in the United States. We are #1 in wheat production. Most of our wheat goes to like Charlotte for milling and produces flour, although some of it is also used in livestock feed. But with the people in place, the technology available, the progressiveness of the Union County agricultural community, along with the population centers that surround us, I believe that agriculture will remain a major component of Union County's economy.
In November of 1941, the Army had maneuvers in 16 counties in North and South Carolina, and the headquarters was at Monroe Country Club.
A date which will live in infamy.
Early in 1942, the Army decided that Fort Bragg was too crowded and they needed some temporary camp to substitute for like engineer training. The local leaders, they convinced the Army to set up a camp here. And it was on 2,500 acres just east of Monroe. And they had another 5,000 acres down near Pageland that was a firing range. It was named Camp Sutton pretty soon because the first man that was killed in the war, who was local, was Frank Sutton. They had thousands of soldiers here and many thousands more than the population of Monroe, for instance. In 1944, there were about 500 German prisoners of war that were housed at Camp Sutton. And then about 3,500 Italians. They had been prisoners of war, but since Italy was at that time out of the war, they were called collaborators. So they shut down the camp in 1945. Then the property was surplus, and so it was offered originally to the original owners. Some of them took it back, but other developers bought chunks of it and developed it. Obviously, after the war, that was prime real estate. And after the war, the local leaders were trying to create non-agricultural jobs. They wanted to diversify the economy.
There are the three fundamental reasons that people move to Union County: low prices, quality schools, and a rural atmosphere. We've done a marvelous job of making available to our residents the amenities that are important to them while still maintaining our relatively rural lifestyle.
Planned progress, that's what they want, and that's what each city has. They have planned progress, and they have the things that that community wants. Good places, good communities, but they have grown them the way the people that live there want it to be. So it's, we're very fortunate.
When you have some of the top schools in the state, when you have people who care, that the quality of life is just excellent.
We are a positive city, we're a positive county, we're go-to people, and certainly you'll see the friendliness of the city and of the county.
We actually wave to people and smile to them. We hold the door. We salute the flag. This is a pretty cool place.
Union County has a lot to be proud of in that our citizenry has always come forward to help others. It's a good place to live.